Learning and progressing to windsurf, let's be honest, it's not the easiest thing, and it's probably one of the most frustrating sports to learn. You have a little step forward, something clicks, and then something else falls out the back of your technique or your skills that you're progressing with. Added on top of that, windsurfing, it's a whole different language. So maybe you're a non-windsurfer, but your friends or family members are getting into it and you just want to get involved in their conversation and understand what some of this terminology is. Or maybe you're a windsurfer already, and me, throughout this channel, I keep using jargon and words that we're not quite sure what they are. This is going to be the video for you. Now, as you can probably tell from my accent, I am English first language, but actually it's a whole different language learning to windsurfing. All of these different terms and words and things that I'm dropping in just make things a little bit confusing until you understand why we're using them or really what they are. That's what this session is all about. Doesn't matter if English is your first language or not, probably you're going to learn a new word or another terminology fact along the way. And I'm going to slowly build them up from what I'd say is beginner terminology, beginner introduction to the kit, all the way up to some much more advanced stuff that I'm going to throw in. So let's start off looking at the board that I'm riding just now. This is a nice, stable platform that I'm learning on. This is a 165 Go windsurfer. It has a front, which we call the nose, and it has the back, which is called the tail. It has a deck, that's the top bit, and it has a base, or the underside, which is the bit underneath the board, under the water right now. We have an imaginary center line running straight through the board, from the nose to the tail, passing through the UJ, the universal joint, which connects the board to the sail, sometimes called the mast foot. That imaginary line, called the center line, continues through the center board, or dagger board, which is this retractable handle I've got just here. When that handle is at the back, I have two fins in the water, the center fin and the normal fin. The center fin is an optional fin for use in light winds to add stability and help us sail closer to the wind. The tail fin, generally just called the fin, is on all windsurf boards and is needed to help us sail in a straight line. That imaginary center line that I've just mentioned a couple of times there, that's the most balancy and most stable part of the board. As long as you stand on the center line, you're generally going to be pretty much okay. And that's the same from beginner to advanced. Using that center line on smaller boards will make things easier. But as we get better, there's reasons why I might start moving away from it. We'll come to that shortly. On this board, around the tail of the board, I have foot straps as well. Those nice neoprene sort of feeling, although they're not actually made of neoprene, these ones. Neoprene feeling foot straps, which are used when you're traveling at higher speeds, not just now. And in fact, at this condition right now, no one on the water will be using their foot straps. The sail is made up from a few parts. The main sail material itself, that's the bit that gives me power. The bit I'm holding just now is called the boom, and the bit that holds the sail upright, the vertical bit just here, that's called the mast. All of the sails would have these components. We also have this little guy just here, this uphaul, this rope. That's what's needed when we drop the sail. That's how you pull the sail back up. So that's the uphaul. At the beginner level, that's our equipment. That's enough. Now let's have a look at things that might be a little bit more on the sail if you're an intermediate or an advanced windsurfer, some other terminology that we'd throw in there. Right now I'm hooked into the harness. These are the harness lines, and this is the harness hook around my waist. When you first start using the harness, it makes things harder, not easier. Once you've got the hang of it though, you can start to loosen your fingers and actually channel the power a little bit better. So I can sail upwind better, and I can get the board moving faster, easier, when I start to use the harness. The hands on the boom, sometimes using different phrases. The easiest way to talk about them is my front hand, nearer the front, my back hand, nearer the back. Sometimes they're referred to as the sail hand, the one nearer the back, or the mast hand, the one nearer the mast. That makes a bit of sense, really. There's a few other parts of the sail that are interesting to know as well then. The back of the sail is called the clew. The clew is attached to the boom with a little piece of rope called the outhaul. The boom is actually adjustable in size, and it ranges from, my boom in this one, 150 centimetres up to 200 centimetres. So I can use the same boom on a few different sails depending on what size boom I need. Generally, a quiver of sails, which is my collection of sails, you'll have a few different booms and a few different masts depending on the size or range of your quiver. More about the quiver shortly. The trailing edge at the top of the sail, which on this one and most sails should be a little bit loose, that's called the leech. The top of the sail is called the head, and the bottom of the sail is called the foot. The mast has another piece hidden inside it, which is called the mast extension. And just like the boom, it's adjustable, so you can use the same extension in a few different sails. The masts come in different options too, depending on what size you need for that sail. So I use the little information panel on my sail just here, which tells me I need a 430 mast and a 12 centimetre extension. Also tells me my boom is 178, so that will help me set things up correctly. At the front of the boom, I have a boom clamp. That's how I adjust the height of the boom. Attaching the boom clamp to the mast is this little piece of rope, which is called the in-haul. The out-haul pulls the sail out. The in-haul is how you attach the sail at the inside near the mast. And then the rope down on the extension is called the downhaul. That's how you pull the sail down. Rigging and tuning the sail basically refers to how you put the sail together and how we decide on what sort of shape or feeling that sail is going to give. So you might pull on more or less downhaul or outhaul for various reasons, and that's not part of this video. But rigging and tuning means assembling and checking over that sail. Another part of the sail that's a useful one to know is the luff. The luff is where the mast feeds through, or that's the luff tube, and then the luff itself is actually the bit that runs just inside that part of the sail. The black strip running parallel to the mast just now on this sail. That noise you just heard there, that's me popping the battens from one side of the sail to the other. Almost all sails have battens of some sort. This is a 5-battened sail. You'll have some sails with 4 or very small sails with 3. And the bigger, more racy, fast sails could have 6, 7 or possibly even 8 battens, adding more stability to the sail, making it easier to get some power, but also adding a little bit of weight. Some sails will also have cams, which is an extra shaping material, an extra shaping piece near the bottom 2, 3 or possibly 4 battens, attaching the batten to the mast. That's basically to create more of an airflow shape of the sail. There's a few reasons why you may or may not have cams, which I can go to in another video, but my general thought is 95% of the windsurfers out there, maybe 90, don't need cams. None of my sails have cams. The windward edge is the side of the board closest to the wind, sometimes referred to as the heel edge of the board, the windward edge, the windward rail, or the heel edge of the board. The leeward or leeward rail, the toe edge of the board that's further downwind. With the wind arriving on my back, over my leading shoulder, that's my right shoulder right now. The windward edge is where my front foot is standing. And as I move onto the centre line or slightly over to the leeward edge, that starts to affect the trim of the board. Trim of the board is how flat we keep the board, front to back and side to side. Flat board is a fast board, but possibly for various reasons I will deliberately upset the trim of the board to affect the board and the direction and its stability deliberately in different ways. Again, more about that in different videos. This is just dropping in that terminology. Some boards may have 2, 3, or even 4 fins underneath the tail of the board for various different reasons. Again, just dropping it in there, some ideas for different ones. 3 fins is becoming more popular on some freestyle wave boards. Thruster is what it's called, where you have 3 fins at the back. Back to your quiver of sails or quiver of boards then. Generally, we don't have one board and one sail that works in all conditions. I'll have a selection of sails and a selection of boards, which is simply referred to as your quiver. Sail size is measured in meters squared. So this is a 5.9 meter squared sail. My quiver runs from 3.8 up to 7.6 meters squared. And I'll choose my sail accordingly for the prevailing winds, the wind forecast, the wind that I'm expecting for the session, and what my goal is for that session. I'll often need to match a specific sail with a specific board within the quiver as well, just to make sure everything is as balanced, as stable, and I'm giving myself the best chance of success during that session. Generally, a quiver of sails, in the range that you have, you're going somewhere between 0.4 to 1 meter difference in the sail sizes, and that difference gets bigger in the gaps as you get bigger in the sails. For example, my quiver, I have a 3.7, a 4.2, a 4.4, and a 5, and somewhere in there I've got an unusual sail. That's why that size range is a little bit strange. From the 5, I then have the 5.9 that I'm on just now. Then I have a 6.5 and a 7.6. So as they get bigger, those spaces between my sail increments get bigger too. Other little terminology then, moving around as I'm sailing. If I turn my board towards the wind is behind me over this way, this is sometimes called heading up, luffing up, or steering upwind. When I'm sailing upwind, this is how I get from point A to point B upwind within the area that I'm sailing. When I'm sailing upwind, I need some power in my sail. The way I do that is called sheeting in. Easing that sail in with my backhand slightly, or pivoting on my harness lines here, sheeting in. The opposite, sheeting out. Easing the sail out, depowers the sail slightly, and allows you to get a bit more control, or possibly even head downwind a little bit. Our sail position needs to adjust and change depending on the wind strength and your speed. I've done other videos where I've explained what the winds are talking about, but very briefly, the true wind is the actual wind direction. The apparent wind is the wind that I actually feel when I'm moving, and that's slightly further towards the nose depending on my speed. The faster I go, the more the apparent wind comes across in front of me, and I need to sheet in as a result of that. We are trimming our sail to the apparent wind. A whole nother video on that one as well. Bearing away is turning away from the wind. Heading up brings me back upwind. Links us nicely into points of sail. So if I'm sailing upwind, I'm close to the wind, my sail is in fairly close towards the back slightly, and I'm sailing on a close haul. In haul, out haul, down haul. Currently my point of sail is close haul. As I steer slightly further across the wind, I'm now on a beam reach. That's 90 degrees across from true wind. As I start to sail 45 degrees below the beam reach. This is called a broad reach. And I'm checking for some space. I'm now sailing on a run. This is the wind directly behind me. I'm running downwind. There's two different types of turn with windsurfing. The downwind turn, which is what I'm just doing here, where we see that sail scoop and float around. That's called a jibe. This is the same terminology in the high winds as it is in the light winds. It's called a jibe. Turning towards the wind, that's called a tack. Turning towards the wind, all of the T's, is a tack. Again, the same in the light winds as it is in high winds, that same tacking or jibing. You can choose which one you want to do depending on where you're trying to get to. If you're trying to get upwind within your sailing area, within your bay, you're going to choose to tack. If you're trying to get downwind, go faster, and generally perceived as looking a little bit cooler, then you can go downwind and jibe. Planing or non-planing? Right now I am non-planing. The wind is not strong enough for me to get much speed up. Non-planing is basically drifting through the water, but deliberately and under control, just like I am right now, as is everyone within the bay right now. Planing is where the board speeds up and starts to skip across the top of the water. For a lot of windsurfers, when you hear it's not windy enough, the enough part of that sentence means it's not enough wind for them to get planing on the equipment that they have. The sail and board size will vary depending on your size and your skill. So, in light winds, it may well be enough for a lighter build windsurfer on a very big sail to get planing. So it may be enough for them. But a slightly heavier built windsurfer on a smaller sail, it won't be enough for them to get planing. The more skill you have, the better you'll be at using the wind available to you, and the smaller the sail size is you can use. Smaller sails are lighter, more agile, less cumbersome, generally a nicer feel if you're going on smaller sails. But then if someone is going out for maximum speed and wants to go as fast as they possibly can, maybe they're deliberately going to go for bigger sail sizes to make the most of every breath of wind and go as fast as they possibly can. I mentioned the foot straps earlier on. When the board starts to plane, our general goal is to get into the foot straps because it allows the board to be more stable at speed. The further forward and inboard you put your foot straps, the easier it's going to be to get in and out of those foot straps. The further out and back you put the foot straps, the more stable and more use they will be when you're at speed, but they're harder to get in and out of. If you put your foot straps all the way in and all the way forward, some of those boards, particularly the larger ones, have holes on the board where you can put them a long way in and forwards. I often call that the placebo foot straps. They feel quite good. You think everything is working well and psychologically I'm in a pretty good place, but actually they're probably not helping your windsurfing. They would be useful in that placebo foot strap position for very lightweight windsurfers, small adults, teenagers or kids who actually don't need them so far out and back. But for an average built adult, all the way in and forwards is simply not necessary and it actually won't help your windsurfing. This is the start of a windsurfing dictionary. I'm going to make another video explaining a little bit more higher level stuff, maybe some sail material, maybe some board material, or maybe even a few of the moves that kind of get thrown around and we're not sure what they mean. However, just to get me started, to get you guys discussing this as well, what other words have you heard that you're not sure about? Or do you think I've missed that would actually be really important for aspiring windsurfers to understand? Whack them in that little comments box just down below. And while you're doing that, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on the bottom of this video. As I mentioned at the start, this is all filmed out in Vassiliki throughout the summer, all of this channel. If you're coming this way at any point at all, make sure you drop me a message. My contact details are in the description of this video. I can help you out with bespoke training, one-on-one training, mini family trips. Maybe a few of you guys, friends or family, want some coaching together. And I've got a few group clinics going on throughout the summer every single year. All of the details can be found through emailing me or my website. It's all linked into the description of this down below. But if you're coming to Vass, I hope to see you here on the water for some coaching with me, or even if you're not with me, just say hi to me on the water. It's pretty distinctive, beautiful 0.7 sails that I'm going to be using, I'm sure, for years and years to come. Thanks for watching, as always. I will see you out here very soon.